It has been almost a year and a half since I have stopped actively playing and making videos about Honkai Star Rail, and in that time, I genuinely believe that this game has made a lot of strides for the better. Back when I was playing in version 2.3, power creep was rampant. If you didn't have the best team, you were not winning. And this was not isolated to some secret in-game mode that didn't give you any jades. This was applicable in just MOC. Meanwhile, while the in-game content was pretty much unplayable if you didn't pull the specific supports and specific DPSs who would eventually become meta, the story of the game was fucking dog shit. I will stand by this until my dying breath, but the person who wrote Penacony needs to be dragged out onto the slums and stoned to death as a public apology for what he did to this game. There was such a high amount of creative and compassionate care that was put into everything pre-version 2.0, yet the second we turned over to version 2.0, it felt like almost every interaction was little more than fan service and/or a fragmented story that had no right to ever make it past a first draft, which was made all the more offensive when you realize the story length had exceeded itself several times over, with my video game becoming a lot more video than game. Adapting a more visual novel adjacent style, Honkai Star Rail would shove its narrative in your face from versions 2.0 to 2.3, and your reward for actively engaging with a 33-hour-long narrative was realizing just how many plot holes there actually were. So many narrative beats never got followed up on, the most glaring of which would by far be Sparkle's bombs, which he had been handing out for pretty much the entire expansion, only for them to be relegated to a glorified fetch quest in the version 2.3 story as an excuse to give Firefly her third death. A third death that, mind you, doesn't add up because Firefly only died twice in the Penacony story, first to the meme and second to the bomb. Yet we're expected to believe, through the words of Silverwolf, that Sparkle successfully gave her the third death, meaning somewhere along the lines, we didn't see the second one. And I could keep going with this. I've made it no secret that I don't like this story and I don't like the way that it was presented because for the longest time, pretty much nothing happened. I could talk about how falling asleep in the dream world makes you wake up in Dreamflux Reef, a place where the resistance against Sunday is being held, and thus carries the narrative implications that at no point in Penacony's existence did any followers of Sunday fall asleep in the dream world and wake up where the resistance was being held. And then of course we never even saw the Stellaron on Penacony. We were led to believe that it was the Watchmaker's legacy, but unlike the Xianzhou Luofu and Bellabog, a big deal was not really made about it. And I have addressed all of these problems in several videos before.
Hey, does somebody want to tell me why when Avengerain broke his thing inside of the dream world, it's broken in the real world, but when Don Hung uses the Jade Abacus, it's not used in the real world? Doesn't end there. How about you explain to me how Sunday, the universal mastermind of the dream world, had no idea Gallagher was operating in secret for as long as he was? And on the topic of Firefly, who the fuck is Mecha? You could assume that it was the robot suit, but we actually have Firefly as a playable character now, and there is no insinuation that that suit is sentient.
I'm not sure if they're still up, I'm not sure if they're still active, that's besides the point, but the reason I'm making this video today isn't to further complain. Pretty much everything that I've wanted to say about this story has been said before, and while back in the day it was unpopular opinion, nowadays it seems most people agree with that sentiment. The devs included. Ladies and gentlemen, I just got done watching the version 3.x trailer for Honkai Star Rail, and I am... that stupid fucking dog, man. Seems like the developers of the game are either actively catering to me now, or they just finally woke up and got some sense. I don't know what it is about this game in the last few months, but pretty much everything they could have possibly done to bring me back to it is actively being done. We are effectively going to a world that is yokai and cybernetic themed, and you don't have to do anything more than look at my model to understand why I like that. This planet is also allegedly going to be themed around the Elation, which are the Mass Fools, and thus my favorite faction in the game. Sparkle is very likely to come back as a new 5-star based around her original identity of Hanabi, which is something I will talk about in a future video. And now, I wake up this morning getting ready to record my Sampo video, only to find a trailer that addresses almost every single problem I had with Penacony. When I say that version 3.8 has the potential to fix almost every problem I had with Penacony's story, I'm not saying that for the sake of clickbait or exaggeration, I'm being genuine. Very early on into the trailer, we hear somebody say the line, "Your memory of Penacony is incomplete." And if that is true, and if that carries the narrative weight that I expect it to have, that means that all of the plot holes I have been bitching about for the last year and a half have not been for nothing. They were in fact a narrative choice that, while I lost a lot of sleep over, I now have a lot of investment in seeing them brought to fruition. So that being said, it's very likely that version 3.8 is going to address my concerns, with those questions being, whatever happened to Sparkle's bombs in that supposed narrative climax, and what really happened with Firefly's third death? And most importantly of all, why was a follower of the Enigma even on Penacony to begin with? I have had a lot of different theories about the Enigma, but it's pretty difficult when the path by nature obscures its own existence. For those of you who don't know, Gallagher was a follower of the Enigma, and the reason why he died in the end of the story was because he revealed all of his tricks and thus no longer had the right to exist. And the reason that's significant to me is because we have barely seen them anywhere else until Evernight came out in around version 3.6. And the only character who seems to be significant towards them is Sparkle. Sometime in the last year or so, I ended up developing a crackhead theory that Sparkle has something to do with the Enigma, as she takes great care into obscuring her actual past. And if she's going to be significant in future versions of the game, like a lot of people seem to suggest, then that means it's also likely that version 4.0 or Edo Star in general is going to have something to do with the Enigma as well. Furthermore, Sparkle as a character is a lot more nuanced than people give her any credit for. I don't know how many people actually realize this yet, but Sparkle only got invited to Penacony because she was a pop star on Edo Star. Sparkle is not her real name, it is a stage name. Her real name, as revealed inside of the Japanese version of the game, is Hanabi. Edo Star was a Japanese planet, Hanabi is her Japanese name, Sparkle is her stage name. Even inside of the Night Under the Stars trailer, you can see that her name, Sparkle, is always in quotes. So the reason she got to Penacony, and the reason she seems to be so obsessed with taking on Robin's appearance, is because she's a star as well. It just so happens that, unlike Robin, she gave that life up for reasons that we don't really know. But because Sparkle was little more than a supportive role in all of Penacony, none of that ever got touched on. So I look forward to seeing what version 3.0 has in store for Widow Old Me, and yes, I will be making a video talking about that whenever it comes to fruition. Also, before we wrap things up, I would like to apologize for not making the Sampo video today as I intended, as I did not intend for a trailer to come out and completely uproot everything I thought about Penacony, which, as I have said before, I think is dog shit as it currently stands. Ladies and gentlemen, in the words of Gallagher, here is to the imperfect tomorrow, and until I feel like making a video again, I'll see you all around. Farewell.